So, welcome to Loot Shooter Weekly. I am Gamertag Burt Reynolds, and up on the hill, on the cliff, is the Golden Voice Gaming.
Here I am. I'm coming over. Hey, hello, Burt.
Negan Killjoy. Hello, Negan.
Happy
Thursday.
Yes, happy Thursday to you as well. How you doing?
I've had a rough day. I've had better days, but
I'm sorry to hear that.
Just work stuff and house stuff and whatever. But I'm totally ready to go tonight, and we're gonna do a little bit of a fun show. We were just talking, actually. We've got a bunch of news.
Yes, we do.
In Borderlands, there's a bunch of news in a bunch of different games actually this week, and I think, pour one out in sympathy for the fact that one of the games I know both of us are looking forward to, Cyberpunk, got delayed again.
Oh, yeah. Sad moment when I read that news. Sad moment.
Yeah, sad moment when I read that news as well. And Division got a patch this week that did basically nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It turned off an apparel event. I was like, really? They released patch notes for that, huh? That's cute. And then a lot of big news in this game this week. They did a reveal.
Yeah.
Reveal today. Yeah, on what is the name of the new mode? I should know it by now, but I don't. And it's late here, so
Arms race?
Arms race, yes. And we were talking about how it's a lot like the survival mode in Division 1, which, of course, somebody I know, not naming names.
Not going to say any names. I appreciate that.
Basically lived in that mode, and it still obsesses over it today from the Division 1. And it's like...
Just talking about it, man. Just talking about it makes me itchy. I got to go back in there now in the next day or so. I'm going to go crazy.
Yep.
Talking about that mode.
So you can guess who I'm talking about. I didn't name names, but apparently you're just going to confess. You're going to confess to it.
That's right. Yes. It's Negan. In case anybody's curious, it's Negan who jonesing for the survival. So when I saw the reveal and got to thinking about it later, like you and I were just talking about a couple minutes ago, and got to thinking about it, yeah, it definitely has that survival feel to it. You're running through, and they keep making a reference to the battle royales of the storms and stuff. But I think survival did a really good job with that in Division 1. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this, and it's going to be echo casted, quote unquote. So you're going to have the announcers, I guess, kind of like what they do with Slaughter Shaft.
Mm-hmm.
Slaughter Shaft.
Slaughter Shafts. Well, any of the circle of slaughters, yeah. Slaughter Star, Slaughter Shaft, yeah.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting how they do that. With, I guess, if you follow Borderlands at all and you've been here from 1 to 3, the two characters that are announcing are former Vault Hunters.
They are Sal and who else was it?
Zeton or something like that.
Yeah, I have not caught up on all the news from today, so I don't know. But I know I saw it was Salvatore, which I know everyone will be very excited about that because he's quite a character, and yeah, it's going to be exciting. I'm excited about it. I think it'll be fun. And some people were all down on it because you can't use your action skills. But that's going to really force you into the gunplay, right? And I don't have a problem with that. It's just one mode. It's not like they took action skills away from the game or something.
Right, exactly. They said originally it was going to be a run and gun type thing, so that makes total sense with what they were announcing, what they were talking about. So, and the other character was Axton, I guess, was the other one?
Yeah, Axon. Yep. Yep. So two former Vault Hunters from 2, and so that'll be very fun and cool. And I think the reason they took the action skills away is well, there are certain characters in this game, Moze and Amara, who don't even need weapons to do Mayhem 10 content with their action skill, right? And so, like, in theory, you could just run through to the end boss and wreck them without ever collecting a gun on those characters, which would make it really, kind of, I don't know, lame. So,
agreed. I kind of wonder if you had the skills. I'm glad they didn't put the skills in. The same thing about the digiclone is you could just pop up your digiclone and all the bad guys would focus on him, and you just keep running through. With Zane, is that just keep popping digiclone forward and forward more. All right, so I'm kind of glad they're not. I'm kind of glad they're doing. I'm kind of glad they're introducing a whole different gameplay version. So I think I'm kind of excited about it. I think they made a good move.
I felt like the season pass price is a good price point they came in at too, right? I mean, I think a lot of people were a little worried there it was gonna be like $80 or something, and 30 seems like a reasonable amount for a second year's worth of content. And it's especially knowing there's likely another takedown or two coming this year and some other things. I mean, it seemed priced right. I like the idea of the game mode. They're adding more loot, new skill trees. Seems like a good deal to me. So I was excited.
Yeah, no, it's a good price. And they announced the DLC, the designer's cut or something like that's going to be like 15. So I mean, it's a good price. I think you're coming out ahead, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
I think had they gone much higher than that, it would have been received much more negatively. Would be my guess.
Correct. I think same. So before we get into what we're doing tonight, we're gonna show off another Moze build. It's actually an update of an old Moze build that I did back at either level 57 or level 60. I don't remember. We featured it before though, so for those of you who've watched older episodes, you may have seen it before. But I did a level 65 update. And man, from a perspective of raw damage, this build just absolutely churns out insane damage. On par with a Minesweeper build, but you don't have to hit crits. Minesweeper build, you're either churning out insane amounts of damage once you get a crit chain going on a boss or somebody. But if you're not hitting crits, you're not doing a lot of damage at all. This is consistent, tons of damage. So we're going to show that off. But before we do, we always have our beer segment.
What are you drinking? Important happening. What are we drinking?
What are you drinking tonight? Yes, the what are you drinking tonight segment of the show. So we should do that.
You should. I believe it is your turn to go first.
Is it? Okay. Yes. All right.
No pressure. Hopefully you have your beer ready to go.
I do. I am drinking something from Alaskan Brewery. I've mentioned them before. I did their wheat beer, their wit, Alaskan wit. And I really liked it. But I don't think I've ever had anything else. There's not, I don't get a lot of their other stuff here. And that's seasonal. But the store had their amber, which says it is an alt-style amber ale.
Alt-style?
Have any other? Yes. Amber alt-style ale. It doesn't have any kind of descriptor? Oh, nope. Smooth, flavorful, and balanced from Alaska to you. But I think that might just be their tagline, so...
Yeah, that does have the tagline smell to it.
So, cheers. I'm going to drink this guy out of the can.
Savage it up, huh?
As I may have mentioned, it's been a long day. So there it is, Amber Alt. How about you, Negan? What are you drinking tonight?
Well, I decided since this is the last show of October that I had to go with one more Oktoberfest. I'm drinking Oktoberfest, and this one is from a brewery called Original Pattern, which is out of Oakland, California. And they're really good. They have a couple of beers I like. It's called the Feist beer. And the way they describe this one is they describe it, I believe, with honey, traditional, clean, balanced biscuit hints of honey. So I'm kind of interested to see how that works out. I'm assuming it's going to be malty. But the interesting thing about Original Pattern is they actually have an IPA that I've had that I enjoyed as well. So I'm really looking forward to their Marzen version, their Feist beer. Because I think, it was actually a funny story. We went in there from work one time. I don't want to make a lot of noise opening this, but and so I was there, and I told the guy, I tell all the bartenders wherever I go, all the breweries we go to, that I'm not a big IPA fan. I don't like the citrusy, as I've expressed here multiple times. I don't like the pineapple taste. I don't like anything about it. And I almost think he got offended. He's like, well, then you haven't had a good IPA, or not all IPAs are the same. And so we started talking a little bit more. He's like, here, try this one. And I wish I could remember the name of it, but it was actually a pretty decent IPA. It still had a little bit of pine, that pine taste to it, but it wasn't overwhelming. So as far as IPAs go, they had a good one. I figured their Oktoberfest is probably going to be fairly enjoyable. I'm going into it with high expectations.
High expectations. A lot to live up to tonight.
That's right. That's right. So to you, my friend, I say Prost, as we said all night, all week.
I'm not drinking Oktoberfest, so I will just say cheers.
Cheers. There you go. All right.
Awesome. So let's get into this build because you may see we're outside the Guardian Takedown. We're gonna actually do a little run through just of a little bit of it here at probably the start. I don't know that we'll have time to get too much into it, but we're gonna show you how it performs here because this is where the enemies are the hardest and this is where damage counts. So
makes sense. Makes total sense.
We're gonna show it off in here a little bit. All right.
So we good now? You ready? Bring everybody in. Bring them back.
Bring them back. So what this build is all about, you may notice it's a 1 HP build. And,
yes.
Again, most of the time, most people run 1 HP builds, including myself, usually run a Deathless artifact, which gives you 1 HP. It literally, that's what it does. It converts... It drops you to 1 health, and I'll just read the card. I don't know why I'm trying to remember what the card says. But in essence, it gives you 200% shield, I think 100% shield capacity, so 200% shield. But it gives you 1 health. And it drops your shield recharge rate and shield recharge delay by a little bit. And very strong. You can make a very strong Deathless build. But the one
those are pretty common, too. Deathless builds are pretty common across multiple characters, not just Moze.
Very common. Yeah, I mean, Flak. A lot of people run Flak Deathless, and yes. I know some people run a Zane with the shield and Deathless, right? Good way to get 5150 weapons, URAD weapons into the mix. So, but the one thing that Deathless lacks, I mean, you can get good rolls on the Deathless. You'll see mine has like area of effect damage and extra radiation damage. They're good for mobbing builds. They really are. Especially if you're gonna, use a bunch of radiation damage. Great everywhere in the base game. In the takedowns, where almost everything requires either shock or corrosive because of shields and armor, radiation's not the best, right? And neither is cryo, because you could run an icebreaker Deathless and then run all cryo weapons. Cryo does okay. Radiation does okay. It's good to have just a little bit more raw damage and stick to something like shock and corrosive, as you see on my weapons here.
Yeah, right? radiation cryo are good augments for your weapons, but they're not good primary.
Right.
Good to have is like with Zane with the cryo 100 and stuff like that. But yeah, does your basic doesn't really work out real well.
But see, for radiation does a lot of damage to big mobs, right? And it eats away at a character or an enemy. And it'll make them explode into a big cloud of radiation that infects the other ones around it. But again, not super strong when you need to drop a lot of enemies really quick that have a ton of armor and a ton of shield.
Right.
So I've run Deathless builds through here successfully, solo and in groups, and they do play. They absolutely play. But, I think the one thing that it lacks is a little bit of burst damage. Other builds for Moze, splash builds, like a Blastmaster build or a Sweeper build, will put out a little bit more burst damage, a little less area of effect damage, although Splash Moze can put out quite a bit. But still nothing other than the Minesweeper, and only when you're hitting crits, really equals what we're going to look at tonight in terms of raw damage output. And we're going to use a Bloodletter, which is actually a defensive, if you think about it, it's a defensive comm that basically allows anytime you're going to get healed, that instead of getting health, you're going to get shields. So it allows you to heal your shield. It's very much a defensive comm, but what it allows you to do is run down into the red tree to the skill you see in my comm there, the one on the right-hand side, which is Desperate Measures, which is one of the only places in Moze's skill tree where she can pick up additional raw damage. So non-splash damage and non-elemental damage. She's only got a couple sources of that, and this is the big one. So though it's a defensive comm, it allows you to be very offensive in your skill tree.
Makes sense.
Yep. And again, usually that would be run in combination with a Deathless. You have a giant shield, blah, 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 blah. We featured one of those builds, last week, I think, when we were talking about shields. But
yeah,
I wanted to bring
a couple of different options.
And so you'll see when we get to the skill tree, I'm going to have 100% bonus weapon damage from Desperate Measures because I've got 3 on my comm and 3, I think, in my skill tree. It gets me to 6, which is 100%. But what if I could pair that with the Pearl? Because the Pearl stacks up until you hit, basically, I think the grand total here is 115% additional damage when the Pearl's fully stacked. So now you're looking at 215% damage. And of course, I have some weapon damage on the comm as one of the passives, so another 32. So now we're punching up on, phase cast 250 levels. Now that's just an anointment. That's on top of Amara's other gun damage. But then we're bringing in 150 radiation damage on top of it, right? And the 100% plus incendiary damage from my skill tree. And so we start piling all this damage together, right? And though we lack a little bit of the multipliers, we've talked earlier about the math, another show about how the math works, right? The more multipliers you have, multipliers are great. They're good. They get you big bursts of damage, if you have more things to multiply by. But if you don't have a reasonable size number to start with, and you just keep adding multipliers, you lose something too. So this build focuses on getting that initial number, weapon damage, up while still maintaining several of the multipliers, if that makes sense. We're also going to get more weapon damage also from throwing grenades. So just we could call that out too, because we get another 25% there. Go ahead, Negan. Were you going to say something?
I was going to say, so the damage you're talking about is without having to proc anything. That's just, like you said, raw damage. 200+% just raw damage. You don't have to wait for anything. You don't have to hit crits. You just raw damage.
None of this is anointment based and none of it's crit damage based. Yes. This is all the time. And we're going to do an old god. So here we're going to pick up some additional, in this case, shock damage, because I've got a shock one on, because we're going to use a lot of shock weapons. And we're going to pick up additional elemental damage just in general, right? So that's what the old god does. So we're pushing damage output from everywhere. So when we go into the skill tree, unlike other times, I'm actually going to start in the red tree. We're not going to go all the way down the red tree. Not going to capstone it. This is only a 1 capstone build. But we are going to have 5 into armored infantry, which is going to give us some gun damage and damage reduction when my shields are active. Well, if my shields aren't active, I'm in fight for my life. In this case, because I only have 1 HP.
Yes. Yeah, shield's gone, you down.
I'm done. Yeah, I'm out. That's it. We are going to put 1 into Vladif Ingenuity, which just bumps my shield up. It's honestly a point I put there. I mean, I could use a bigger shield. We'll talk about that in a minute when we get to the gear, some of the different shields you could use, and that I would use in here in different portions of it. But I'm really using this to get down the tree. You can see here I end up with a grand total of 5 into Thin Red Line, which allows me to reserve 100% of my health and add it to max shields instead of having to run the Deathless. I have 5 into Drowning in Brass, which is going to give me a little bit more gun damage, and it slows down my rate of fire. I'm going to buff the incendiary damage via elemental munitions. And as you can see here, I've got 3 plus the 3 from my comm into Desperate Measures, giving me gun damage up to 100% at 1, when it says up to 100%, at 1 HP, you get 100%. Right, so if I'm at 1 HP, I'm getting all of that. So that is the red tree in here. And I'm actually going to run weapons. Normally I run double nukes, but I'm actually going to run double railguns. One that's firing the shock rounds that spread around. It's a little bit like the the Brainstormer, and one with the corrosive sabot rounds. Because again, in the takedown, shotgun corrosive, super valuable. My blue tree is my standard blue tree that I run on every Moze build ever, anywhere, because I always run, almost always capstone the blue tree for Moze. If you don't, you're missing out on some of the biggest damage, if not the biggest damage adder on Moze, which is short fuse. But anyway, I've got Fire in the Skag Den for incendiary damage. I've got Means of Destruction to get ammo back. I've got Torque Cross Promotion to spread my splash damage out. I've got 3 into Stainless Steel Bear to really enhance short fuse. I have Auto Bear active because I am going to pop my bear up and leave it up and get out, in and out of the bear a little bit. I do have Pull the Holy Pin, allowing my grenades to crit. Vampire for healing, and then short fuse, which is going to do some bonus damage based on the amount of gun damage I've done. It's going to create a secondary explosion. Here's another one of those spots. By pushing that gun damage up like I am, the secondary explosion here gets buffed by a lot. 75% of gun damage. So, I'm only making this stronger with all the different ways that I'm enhancing my gun damage. And finally, last but not least, green tree. I've got 5 into Cloud of Lead for bonus incendiary damage. Stoke the Embers, again, bonus incendiary redistribution. Here I'm getting some health and mag back. Scrappy, this is one of the other places, Negan, where you can get weapon damage. One of the few other raw weapon damage sources. I can get 30% weapon damage here, but I have to be moving around.
Okay,
that makes sense.
Channeling Zane there.
Channeling Zane a little bit. And this allows me to sprint and shoot at the same time and gives me some lifesteal. It's Russian offensive. And my final 4 points I am going to put not into Scorching RPMs, which would actually increase my damage output because of fire rate and crit hit damage, but I am, because don't really have a way here. I'm not regenning ammo like a green tree capstone or even something that's gone way down the green tree. I am going to put 4 into the Iron Bank to just buff my mag size so that I'm not constantly having to reload. You do have to reload on this build. It's not
I was
infinite.
just about to ask you that question. Do you have to reload?
I will.
Is it still going to be the not ammo losing, or you have to reload ammo a lot as well, like stop at the machines and stuff?
No, I won't have to stop at the machines much, but I will have to reload my gun. So I let's put it this way: if you're buying $4,000 worth of ammo out of the machine, I'll be buying 400.
Right.
It's not to say I won't use any, but
standard mode's
I will
ripping
not.
off the system. Gotcha.
But the other night we were in here and I was running a different build in here, and you may remember, like, I never had to get ammo. Ever.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Like, never. This is not that. So you may also notice we don't have the event, the Halloween event going at the moment. When we go in to do takedowns, we usually turn it off, just because it dilutes the loot pool. It's already not great in here, and also, I got enough going on without fighting skulls.
Right.
So
good for fight your life mode, but not good for general on the mod and stuff.
So this is going to be a little bit of a fight for your life build. I'm going to say it. I mean, I'm not going to be uber tanky. See, I'm already down. Because that guy got in on me. But boy, howdy, can you get out of fight for your life?
Yeah, it seems like you got up there relatively quickly. It
doesn't take much. And you really just have to play smart. It's not that it's so squishy. I have to be smart. This particular takedown is hard on Moze, I think maybe more than any other spot in this game, because most of the enemies here jump towards you as a defensive maneuver. And I'll say it again, I've said it every week when we've covered a Moze build. Moze is Moze's worst enemy. Moze almost always, But if you're looking for who killed Moze, it's usually Moze. Like if you're trying to figure out who killed Moze, it's Moze that killed Moze. It's she just that splash damage, and especially with like a maxed out torque cross promotion, the damage radius on the splash damage is huge. So when an enemy jumps at you and gets in your face while you're firing at them, it's problematic. It really is. Like all of a sudden that splash damage is all up in your grill and you are down. So that might happen. I won't have any problem getting out of Fight for My Life.
Good. That's almost just as important. I mean, especially in the takedown where you have to wait until certain checkpoints once you go down. So yeah, having a quick release from Fight for Life is good.
Now the funny thing here is like out here, this is one of the rare sections where, like the Deathless, Atom Bomb Deathless does fine out here because a lot of these are live enemies. Mm-hmm. Their incendiary guns work out here. Ooh, 5150 Flood. I'll take that. That got buffed recently. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the enemies out here, fire weapons work on them. Radiation works good on them. The thing is, you're not going to usually struggle through this section. And there's another section right after the halfway point that almost mirrors it. This isn't where you're going to struggle in these takedowns. You're going to struggle on the plates, and you're going to be fighting Guardians, and that's where this kind of build that's very focused on shock and corrosive is going to shine. So we'll get to some plates here in a second.
Everything you did went into damage.
So my bear at times for me is like my oh crap, I'm about to go down. Pop the bear up. Here, I'll pop it up. Because it is going to do work on these guys. And watch, you'll start to see lightning chain between these guys. That's coming from the one cannon on here, the shock cannon, which will cause lightning to chain to them, and they will get wrecked by that lightning, which is coming from the bear. So.
Okay. But yeah, you're not hopping in as much as other builds as you put together. So you're kind of balancing.
No, I would not call this. It is not a bear hopper build. I'm not. Again, I don't have to trigger any anointments. I'm not because I'm not. When I do this, I basically will do the same build again. A traditional Deathless build. I would just literally have the Deathless in there, right? And I'd be much more focused on radiation. Then I would bear hop a lot just to get the atom bombs that the bear drops going, because that's a lot of radiation damage, right? It's great for mobbing.
Okay, speaking of mobbing, here we go. Here's where it gets real.
Here's where it gets real. Yes, this is where it gets real. But I don't know. I know you're doing a good job. You're slaying stuff over there too, which you need to be tonight. It's not. I can't solo this stuff. But it does wreck these guys. This particular build does just destroy these guys. Then again, so does your clone.
Right. Well, we're about to find out just how well your damage does here in a second. We split off on plates, because we split here in just a second. So you get to show off at that point.
Yep. Sure do.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to solo the takedown when it's proc for two people. All right, now you get to show off.
Well, we gotta diadem. We gotta take down here. All right. Moving to my plate, popping up my bear.
Moving to mine as well.
I got guys on my plate already.
Clone, go. Go, clone, go.
Dude, that clone build
does work, man.
Zane is running my Snow Goblin build.
Mm-hmm.
And that thing is just awesome in here.
Yeah. It's very hard to get away from. I've been wanting to try a new build, but it's every time I hit that respec button, I stop.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know if I can do that.
I don't know. I just don't know. Although with some of the Terrified builds and stuff like that, though, it's becoming intriguing to move forward and see what happens. Oh.
You know what else? I was just gonna say, you know what else the Iron Bear is good for? The Iron Bear is awesome at baiting in diadems and having them explode on the Iron Bear instead of on you. I like it for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So watch. Diadem looks like you got one. Nice.
Yep. But see, I can tank that in the bear, which is pretty awesome.
That's nice. I use my clone for that. See if clone can distract him.
So now I'm gonna use the red line here because the red line wrecks these guys as well. There we go.
Boom. That didn't take you very long on that plate either. That was kind of nice. And didn't hear you say you're in fight for your life, so you survived pretty well.
I did. I went down once. Again,
I won't judge. I went down once as well.
Well, and I was gonna say, I mean, again, the Guardians jump towards you as a defensive maneuver. A very bad thing for a splash damage, splashy build. It's designed to make your life miserable.
Right, exactly.
I think whoever designed Guardians did not like Moze. That's just my opinion, but it's like.
So, having said that, what makes you enjoy Moze so much? I mean, yeah, what makes you enjoy her so much? Because you made Moze.
Yeah, I mean, I play all the tunes and I put builds together for all of them. So, but I'm the Moze captain at the Angelic and Beastly Creatures Discord, right? So, that plays a role. I started with Moze. Moze was my first character. I think it's my love of Mech Warrior, if I'm honest. I grew up playing Mech Warrior, right? So like when I saw there was a character that had a giant robot, I was like, oh man, I'm in on that. That's gonna be good. But what's really important, and you saw what it is that this build can actually really shred through the Guardians. Even when it's scaled for 2 and even when I'm alone. And that's the important part of the Guardian Takedown is that you can get through the plates. And the plates are all about, killing the Guardians.
Right.
And so I like this build. I like it. I think it's a lot of fun. And as you can see is if you're throwing grenades a lot, you can stay alive with it. So it's not like possible to stay alive with. So we call it the Blood Red Pearl. I'm going to go through it one more time real quick, then we're going to talk about what we thought about the bear, or the bears.
The beers. Not the beers.
Not the Bears. I don't even watch the Bears. I live in Chicago, but I don't watch the Bears. But I'm not a Packers fan. I'm not a Packers fan either, so don't. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay, good. People were concerned.
We'll just put the skill tree in the video, so I'm not going to go back through that. But the important thing is, you are going to want to have 5 into Thin Red Line, and you're going to want to have 6 into Desperate Measures, which I'm going to call it out. This is a little gear dependent, right? Like that's a hard comm to come by. 2 into Thin Red Line, 3 into Desperate Measures. Alternatively, you can do less into Thin Red Line if you just use a front loader. So then you only need 2 into Thin Red Line, and a front loader would also be a replacement here. If you're struggling to come across the gear, which I would totally get because I don't want to say that's an unlikely role, but it's not
a lot of RNG in your favor.
Well, here's the thing with it. It seems like it is. It's actually an easier comm to get than a lot of other comms. The reason being is probably the harder part here is getting Desperate Measures to have the 3 than it is to getting 2 into Thin Red Line. There's only 3 different ones that can roll on a bloodletter. You can get Thin Red Line, Desperate Measures, or Phylanix Doctrine, and you'll find a lot that are 2-1. That's probably the most common drop of this com. But I do have another one that is 3-2 of that. But yeah, I mean it is a little gear dependent if you want to put the build together this way. And then the actual gear, splash damage weapons, torque pistols. You can even go laser exploder, whatever. Malawan, SMGs and pistols. I've got a rebound. I didn't even use it in there. And then the red line. I love the red line. This shotgun is nuts. Old God, there's that bloodletter. And a Pearl of Ineffable Knowledge. I do recommend going with max health on the Pearl. There's a bunch of different Pearl rolls you can get. Max health isn't even like a great roll, but in this particular case, it's a great roll because that's getting turned into a ton of shield. And then
that totally makes sense.
Cloning Mending Tracker. And what we net in with here is like a constant 250% gun damage and an additional 150% constant radiation damage plus the incendiary damage from the tree. I mean, that's a lot of bonus damage, right? And we still have lots of multipliers because we got a whole bunch of elements going on. So it's strong. I like it, Negan.
Good. It sounds like it's strong. And as you noticed in the last part right there, you seem to do pretty well with your damage and taking out Guardians. So your focus on that aspect of it seemed to do right.
Yeah. And that's really, I mean, I put this together, as we always say, our mark for if we're ever going to give a build away at the Angelic and Beastly Creatures Discord is it has to be able to solo the Guardian Takedown, right? We don't give builds away that can't solo Guardian Takedown. So I'm always focused on that. I'm like laser focused on that. And this I think of all the Moze builds, I have several that I can do the Guardian Takedown with, but this one I think does it fastest and most efficiently. And I think that's all I have to say about the build tonight, Negan. Honestly, again, Blood Red Pearl. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, I did have one thing to call out. I do want to give a special thanks to a guy, Gamertag K9 Riot, who did give me the shield, and it is a perfect shield for this build. It's literally the perfect shield for this build. I had an incendiary one in here with similar rolls on it, and he gave me the shock one, and the shock one does help. I would recommend a shock or corrosive Old God because the incendiary one that I had in there, which I'd had in there for quite a while on this build, is great, again, if you're fighting flesh enemies, but this really turned it up a little extra 10% notch, and so a big thanks to K9 Riot. That was a nice gesture, him giving me that.
That's kind of cool. Oh, good. And it does make sense, like we talked about, with the Guardians being both corrosive and shock sensitive. So getting a shock Old God as well helps.
It does. And I mean, I have a couple corrosive guns in here. Honestly, I'm doing so much shock damage. It just doesn't it doesn't matter. And that's the harder in here. That's the health bars for a Guardian is shock. And it doesn't go away as fast as shield bars go away out in the normal world. So Anyway, how about that beer though, Negan? How was your beer? Because you were excited about yours.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but I'm a little disappointed. Just a touch. I think I came in with really high expectations. Came in really high.
I was going to say,
set the bar
you
really high.
called it out. You said you had high expectations, so...
I did. So I think it just fell a little bit short. It does have a little more hops than I think I expected. So, but it's still good. It's still a good beer. It's probably a 7-ish. The solid 7s this whole time with Oktoberfests. It would be a good solid 7. If I was at the brewery itself and somebody bought this for me, I certainly wouldn't be offended. I'd drink it. And as far as Oktoberfest beers go, it's not as malty as I think some of the good ones are. It definitely has a little more hop to it, but it's still pretty good. So 7-ish out of 10.
Okay.
And, what about your Alaskan brewery? Or Alaskan brewing?
Alaskan brewing. It is. It's very good. It's not at all offensive in any way.
I guess that's a good thing. I'm not sure if a great tagline, but okay. Not at all offensive.
Do you like that? It is not at all offensive in any way. It is. It's very, very good. It's a great drinkable drinking beer. It is also in no way remarkable.
Gotcha. Okay. And what was the name of it again?
It is just Alaskan Brewing's Amber Alt Style Ale. It's, I mean, as far as ambers go, it's very, very good. But ambers are kind of like here's the thing, right? Like if I'm going to just sit down and have a beer, this is a good beer for that. Like if you and I are going to game and I'm just going to have a beer, like I'm just going to have beer. This is perfect for that. I like Scotch ales too for that same reason. Like it's not a Bud Light. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's a good quality, rich, deep, dark, like kind of meaty beer, but it's also totally not offensive in any way, shape, or form. It's not overly sweet. It's not overly hoppy. It's not overly anything.
So some would refer to that as opposed to not offensive, relatively well balanced is what they would call that.
It's exceptionally well balanced. It is exceptionally well balanced. That's a good description.
Good.
So I would
two good beers.
Squarely give that I would squarely give that probably a 7.5. Yeah, 7.5. Nice. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, so we got a cool build going. And how's that? What'd you do there?
What?
I didn't realize you could land on one of those plates right there.
Oh yeah, dude, you can land anywhere in here. It's awesome. Anyway, I'm just messing around because I know I'm gonna die anyway. So,
right.
Yeah.
I did not realize you can land on that plate right there. That's good to know. Then everybody else down below you stop. Oh, sorry, I got stuck.
Yeah, I mean, you can land anywhere. You have so much control in this of how you fly around in here because of the low gravity.
Right.
That you can do all kinds of stuff. I've come down and actually landed on come in at a kind of an angle and landed on a ledge underneath. Anyway, nice. If you have enough time to screw around in here, you can do some pretty crazy stuff. But yeah, that's where we're gonna end it for tonight. Standing on the platform overlooking the mid-boss fight by myself.
All by yourself. All by yourself. I'm not gonna sing. I refuse to sing.
Sad.
Sad moment. Look at you.
Yeah. I wish I could sit down. Or if I had the emote from Destiny 2 where it's the sad pushing the swing, the kid pushing the swing by himself.
Yes, that one. I remember that one.
I love that one.
So sad. Yeah, absolutely.
No one to play with. I love that one. Anyway, that'll do it. Before we go on some sort of trip down Destiny memory lane, that will do it for tonight. And so, come check us out next week. And I hope you enjoyed the build. And with that, Negan will tell you.
Time to say see ya.